How about knitting a new summer top with a small nuance, that little wow you feel every time you put it on and think, I made this and it looks amazing. In this tutorial, I will show you how to knit the Nuance tee, a summer top that fits so well that you will want to make both versions. It's a beginner-friendly project with minimal shaping and a simple circular yoke. I created one tee in plain stockinette stitch for beginner knitters, so you can knit your first real garment with confidence. And then there is the second version with an elegant mesh detail. The mesh pattern may look intricate, but it's actually made with just 2 easy steps: yarn over and knit 2 together. I wanted this design to be a gentle step toward lace, but without making things too complicated. So there is no thin yarn, no extra shaping, just a stylish knitted piece you will truly want to wear. And I will guide you through both versions step by step. So, how we are going to knit it? The Nuance tee has a circular yoke construction. It works top down and completely seamless. We start with a 1x1 rib at the neckline and then knit 5 sections of the yoke with basic M1 increases. From there, choose your version. Continue knitting in the round or add 2 sections of the mesh stitch pattern. It may look more intricate, but it's honestly very simple. And don't worry, we will use lifelines to protect your work, so you will have space to practice as many times as you need. Once the yoke is complete, we will place the sleeve stitches on hold and continue with the body in the round, finishing with a 1x1 rib. The sleeves are also worked in the round with a few plain stockinette rounds and a ribbed edge. You can also adjust the fit to your liking. For example, make body longer or shorter and do the same with the sleeves just by adding or removing a few rounds. If you've already knitted my Thursday sweater or any other garment, you will feel very comfortable with this project. And if you've only knitted scarf, socks or a shawl, I made the basic version exactly for you. And when you are ready, the mesh tee is a great next step. Even as a beginner, you can knit a top that looks truly impressive. This video is your visual guide, so make sure to download the PDF pattern on my website juliapira.com or Ravelry, because you will need it to follow the stitch counts for your size. The pattern is very detailed, with extra tips, and I've added all the links in the description below. So, if you like this design, please let me know with a thumbs up and subscribe to stay updated on new tutorials, because I'm already working on new project for us. Now, a few words about the yarn and a new increased method I tried and really liked. The Nuance tee is worked in decay weight yarn. For my samples, I used my all-time favorites, Drops Belle and Sandnes Garn Line. If you are looking for alternatives, I've created a free yarn guide with many options, so it's easy to find something similar in your stash or local yarn store. I also tested a new increase method called KLL, Knit Left Loop, and I found it a bit less noticeable than the usual M1L. If you are knitting the basic version, you can use it throughout the yoke. I will show it at the beginning. And for the mesh version, use it in the stockinette sections of the yoke as well. Okay, let's start the Nuance tee tutorial. Okay, friends, both versions of the Nuance tee follow the same path at the beginning. The only difference comes later, depending on whether you choose the mesh texture or keep the yoke in plain stockinette. In this tutorial, I will be knitting the mesh version, but I will also mention what to do if you prefer to keep it plain, so you can follow along either way. I'm working size medium today. For my 94 centimeters or 37-inch bust, that gives me a finished circumference of 100 centimeters or 40 inches. So about 6 centimeters or 2.5 inches of positive ease. Just enough room for the tee to drape nicely without feeling oversized. We are beginning right at the top, at the neckline, and working our way down. You can use whichever cast on you are comfortable with. I will be using the long tail cast on as usual. To estimate the tail length, I usually wrap the yarn around an imaginary neckline about 3 times, and that's always enough. Now, take your smaller needles. I'm using 3.5mm circulars, 40 centimeters long, which is US size 4, 16 inches. If you prefer a longer cable, Magic Loop works perfectly here too. I added a tutorial that I like in the description. Make a slip knot and begin casting on the number of stitches for your size. Before you finish casting on, add one extra stitch at the end. This stitch is not part of the pattern itself. It is only there to help us create a very neat join when we close the work in the round. In the next step, we will remove it. Before moving on, take a second to look at your cast-on edge. Just run your fingers along it and make sure every stitch sits the same way. It only takes a moment, but it can save a lot of frustration later. Now, let's join in the round. Bring the stitches to the tips of your needles. You should see the first cast-on stitch on the left needle and that extra stitch sitting on the right. Slip the first stitch from the left needle to the right needle. Then lift the extra stitch over it and let it drop off. Move the stitch back to the left needle and give both yarn tails a gentle tug to snug everything together. At this point, you should be back to your original stitch count. Now, place your beginning of round marker. This marker sits at the center back of the neckline, and from now on, every round will begin here. Next, we will create the crew neckline with a simple 1x1 rib. Work knit 1, purl 1, and repeat this sequence across the entire round. Continue like this for 8 rounds. Each round is exactly the same. Knit 1, purl 1. When I just started knitting, my ribbing was quite uneven. I looked at other knitters' work and wondered how it was so even. And this is what I discovered and what made the difference for me personally. Knit 1 stitch, purl the next, and then gently tighten it just a little. That small adjustment helps the stitches look more even and organized. Once the ribbing is finished, the neckline is complete and we are ready to move onto the yoke. We begin the yoke with a transition round called round 0. In this round, we switch to our larger needles and adjust the stitch count so everything is set up properly for the yoke. This is also where the two versions of the Nuance tee start to differ. So let me walk you through both before we continue. Take your larger needles. I'm using 4mm circular, 40 cm long, which is US size 6, 16 inches. A longer cable for magic loop works perfectly well here too. Let's start with the basic yoke. If you are knitting one of the smaller sizes from 2XS up to L, large, you don't need to change anything. Just knit every stitch to the end of the round. For the larger sizes, XL through 6XL, a few stitches need to be added in this round. That means you need a set number of stitches, then work make one left. I will show you how to do this in just a moment when we look at the mesh version. You simply repeat that sequence, knit, then increase, until you reach the end of the round. Be sure to check the pattern for the exact numbers for your size. If you are working the basic version, you also have the option to add German short rows at the back of the neckline. These extra rows raise the back of the neckline slightly, giving it a more natural shape and a better overall fit. The pattern includes the full step-by-step instructions, and if you would prefer to see the technique demonstrated, the first task sweater tutorial shows the exact same method, only the stitch counts are different. For the mesh version, we will skip the German short rows entirely. The mesh stitch already requires a bit of attention, so adding short rows would feel like too much, especially if you are still building confidence with garment knitting. Even without the short rows, the neckline sits beautifully and feels very comfortable when worn. In the mesh version, every size needs to increase stitches in this round. We are adjusting the stitch count so it divides evenly for the mesh stitch pattern that comes later. I'll show you how this works in size M, and you can simply follow the same idea using the numbers written for your size. For my size, I need to increase 4 stitches. I need the first portion of stitches. And then I work an increase. The simplest one to use here is make one left. Look for the small horizontal strand between your stitches. Pick it up from front to back with your left needle and knit it through the back loop. Gently tighten the yarn. This creates a new stitch without leaving a hole. And then I continue knitting to the next increase point. And repeat the make one left. In total, I work this 4 times. Once you return to the beginning of round marker, take a moment to count your stitches. They should match the number listed in the pattern for your size. At this point, both versions are fully set up. From here, we move on to the first increase section, where the yoke begins to grow and the shape of the T starts to appear. Before we begin the increases, I recommend placing a lifeline. There are quite a lot of increases in this round, and if you get missed, it's much easier to start over with a safety net in place. Take a thinner yarn than the one you are using, thread it onto a tapestry needle and slide it through every leaf stitch. When it's time to remove it later, pull gently so you don't stretch the stitches. Once that's done, we are ready for the first increase round. Now, the basic and mesh versions handle this section a little differently. For the basic yoke, this increase round follows a simple rhythm: knit two, make one left. For the mesh yoke, the spacing is a little wider: knit four, make one left. You will work that sequence all the way around, with the last M1 left placed right before the beginning of round marker. There are a few different ways to work a left-leaning increase, not only M1L, but this is the one you will see in most patterns. For this T, I want to try a different increase I recently found, just to see if it looks a bit neater or feels easier to work with. You can either work M1L, try this new method with me, or use any increase you prefer. At the beginning of this tutorial, I demonstrated how this increase looks in the finished garment, because while I am filming that, I don't know yet how it will turn out. So if you skipped it, you can go back and take a look. Let's start. I'm working size M, so my instruction is knit 4, make one left, and repeat that to the last 4 stitches, then knit those 4. I knit 4 stitches. I will show you once more how to work make one left, and then I will switch to the new method. For make one left, pick up the strand between the stitches from front to back, then knit it through the back loop. Then give the stitch a gentle tug to make the increase less noticeable. Now, I will also work the left-leaning increase, but in a different way. I had to remove a lifeline so you can see clearly what I'm doing. I go into the stitch one row below the stitch I just knitted. This is the first stitch down on the right needle, and it might be the purl stitch from the ribbing. That doesn't matter, because I insert my left needle from back to front into the left leg of that stitch and knit it through the back loop. This method is also called KLL or knit left loop. Again, knit 4, make one. Looks pretty neat. Continue with this rhythm across the round. Now, I've run into an interesting situation here. I need to pick up the strand for my next KLL increase, but right at this spot there is already an increase from round 0. The stitches are sitting very close together and it's hard to see exactly where to go. So, what do? I work the make one left just as usual. Pick up the bar between the stitches from front to back and knit it through the back loop. It might feel a little crowded, but it works. Since we are this close to the neckline ribbing, this tiny adjustment won't be noticeable in the finished fabric. But I wanted to show you this because it might happen to you too. And now you know, just work your make one left as normal. When I reach the last 4 stitches, I just knit them. That's the round complete. Take a moment to count your stitches. If you are off by 1 or 2, you can add a stitch near the end. No need to start over. Just unravel the last 10 stitches and add those stitches evenly while working to the end of the round. But if the stitch count is much further off, unravel all stitches back to a lifeline and work the round again. A little slower this time. You can do this. Round 2, basic version. You just knit this round and all other rounds until you get to section 2. One round before the last, place a lifeline. Mesh version, the most exciting part is coming. We will work round 2 with the simple repeat across the entire round. Yarn over, knit 2 together. Let's do it together. Yarn over, keep it with your finger, then knit the next 2 stitches together. It might feel tight, but the next round we will knit with a slightly looser tension. That gives the stitches more room and makes the decrease much more comfortable. Again, yarn over, knit 2 together. Proceed like this to the beginning of the round marker. Last 2 stitches, yarn over, knit 2 together. If you did everything right, you will finish like this, with 2 stitches. If you have 1 stitch, that means you either made a mistake in this round or in the increase round. I recommend counting the stitches. And if needed, unravel this round stitch by stitch and start over. Round 3. Knit all stitches and try to keep them just a little looser, so it's easier to work into the 2 stitches in the next mesh round. The yarn over is worked as a knit stitch, so don't worry about it. If you accidentally drop it, just place the yarn back on the needle in the correct direction. Done. Round 4. This time we reverse the order. Knit 2 together first. Then yarn over. Once again, knit 2 together. Yarn over. And repeat to the end. If you accidentally lose the yarn over from the previous round, here is how you can fix it. There are two strands of yarn, one from below and one from above. The strand from above is the knit stitch you made in round 3. First, pick up the strand from below and place it on the left needle. This is your yarn over from round 2. Then pick up the strand from above and place it next to it on the needle. You have two strands. One is the yarn over and one is the knit stitch. We need to turn them back into the correct stitch. Take the yarn over and pass it through the next strand. This recreates the knit stitch from the yarn over. Now your stitch looks the same as the next knitted yarn over. Last two stitches. We knit them together and make the last yarn over. Before you start round 5, I recommend placing another lifeline, because this mesh stitch pattern is not that easy to adjust, and I want you to have another secure point to come back to and start over from, and not from the neckline ribbing. Round 5. Now knit all stitches. And when you are back at the beginning of round marker, again count all stitches. If anything is missed, you can fix it now. You can already notice how the pattern alternates. One round opens with a yarn over, the next opens with a knit two together. This is what creates that lovely diagonal net texture. Keep going in this rhythm. Each round is written in the pattern, so just follow along. A couple of things to keep in mind as you work through the yoke. As your stitch count grows, your shorter circular needle will start to feel crowded. When the stitches no longer move comfortably, switch to your 80 or 100 cm long needle, that's 31 or 40 inches. Also, if you need to join a new skein of yarn, try to do it at the center of the back. The join will be far less visible there. And before you work the final round of this section, the knit round, place a new lifeline. It will give you a new return point if anything needs adjusting in the next increase section. Once that last round is complete, section 1 is finished for both versions. Take a moment to look at your work. It might happen that your mesh looks different from mine, like a set of diagonal lines rather than spaced diamonds. First of all, no worries. We had this a couple of times during the test knit and agreed that it's simply another variation of the mesh pattern, and it looks nice too. This usually happens when the mesh rounds are not alternated and all start in the same order, or because of a lost yarn over. That's exactly what happened to me, and I got diagonal lines. So I found my mistake, unraveled, and started over. Let's move on to section 2. In section 2, for the basic yoke, you now work knit 3, make 1 left, and then knit the number of rounds listed for your size. For the mesh yoke, it's knit 5, make 1 left, 1 more stitch between each increase compared to section 1. That's how the yoke gradually grows outward. Now, in the mesh version, some sizes work the repeat evenly from start to finish, but others, including my size M, have a slightly different setup. Let me show you what I mean. My instruction reads: make 1 left, then repeat knit 5, make 1 left to the last 4 stitches, then knit 2, make 1 left, knit 2. Not all sizes can work the increases in exactly the same way, but I wanted to keep it as simple as possible with the same repetitive sequence. We make tiny adjustments at the beginning and at the end, and then effortlessly work the entire round. So I start right away with an M1 before I even knit a single stitch. Then I settle into the familiar knit 5, make 1 sequence. I pick up the strand that lets me knit the loop through the back leg, so it doesn't create a large hole. I noticed I can pick different strands and it doesn't cause any problems. And at the very end, instead of finishing with a full repeat, I knit 2, make 1, knit 2. When you finish the round, count your stitches to make sure you did everything right. You know the routine by now. If 1 or 2 stitches are missing, unravel a bit and add them evenly. Otherwise, start over from your lifeline. I will also switch to a longer cable in the next round. Round 2, basic version, knit all stitches. Continue knitting every round until you reach the number listed for your size, and place a lifeline 1 round before the last, just as you did in section 1. Mesh version, here is something to pay attention to. We continue with the mesh pattern, picking up where we left off in section 1. Sizes 2XS through XL. Your last mesh round was yarn over, knit 2 together. So now you proceed with knit 2 together, yarn over. Sizes 2XL and above, you finished with knit 2 together, yarn over. So now you work yarn over, knit 2 together. For my size M, I knit 2 together, yarn over. Once again, knit 2 together, yarn over, and repeat across the entire round. Round 3. Knit all stitches, keeping that slightly relaxed tension we practiced in section 1. Round 4. Now we switch the mesh pattern and repeat to the end. For size medium, I alternate yarn over, knit 2 together. Continue working through the remaining rounds for your size. And before the final knit round of this section, place your lifeline. By the end of section 2, your mesh yoke should look like this. Next, we move into section 3 and continue in plain stockinette. Section 3. From here, both versions are worked the same way. For the basic version, knit 4, make 1 left, and for the mesh version, knit 2, make 1 left. I realized that I can't use my new increase method here because of the lace pattern, so I will continue with the regular make 1 left. I want to show you what I'm trying to avoid. When we knit in plain stockinette and use make 1 left, small holes can appear. So I will try a different method to make them less noticeable. Okay, in the next increase round. Now for the mesh version. Knit 2 stitches, make 1 left. And repeat to the end of a round. The last increase is made before the beginning of round marker. It looks a bit messy here, so I find the right strand to pick up, one that won't leave a large hole. As always, count your stitches before you continue. Round 2 and all the following rounds in this section are simple. Just knit all stitches in every round until you reach the required number. And this is how section 3 should look. Let's move on to the next section, where I finally try my new increases. In the fourth increase section, both versions begin with a small setup at the start of the round in most sizes, and some sizes also have a few stitches at the end. The basic version works a repeat of knit 6, make 1 left, while the mesh version works knit 4, make 1 left. Let me show you how it works for my size medium. I knit 3 stitches, and then work a simple repeat. Knit 4, make 1 to the end of the round. So I knit 4, and then make 1 with KLL. Other sizes follow the same idea, just with different numbers at the edges. Check the pattern for your size to see whether you have a setup at the beginning, at the end, or both. Round 2 and all following rounds. Just knit all stitches. Both versions are worked in plain stockinette through the rest of this section. And don't forget to place a lifeline 1 round before the last, as always. Section 4 is complete. My increases look pretty neat, but I will know for sure after wet blocking, when the stitches even out and settle into their final shape. Section 5. This is our last increase section, and the first round is a little different from the previous ones for both versions. Instead of one repeating sequence across the entire round, you will work 2 different sequences, one after the other. This helps place a large number of increases evenly across the round. Each size has its own combination, and I will show you how it works for my size medium. For the mesh version in size M, I need to increase 34 stitches. So my instructions are to knit 8 stitches, then make 1 left 20 times. Then switch to knit 7, make 1 left, and repeat that 14 times to finish the round. You can keep track of how many repeats you've worked using the round tracker in your project planner, or simply make marks on a piece of paper. Okay, I will start. I need 8 stitches. Make 1. And repeat this 20 times. After those repeats, I switch. Now it's knit 7, make 1. And continue to the end of the round. When you are done, count your stitches carefully. This is a large number of stitches to count, and if you have removable stitch markers, you can place them every 20 stitches to make counting easier. It takes a little extra time, but it's much better than discovering a mistake a few rounds later. Round 2 and all following rounds. Knit all stitches. Both versions are worked in plain stockinette for the rest of this section. So work the number of rounds for your size, and we will finish the yoke and move to our first control point. We've reached control point 1. At this stage, we will check the length of the yoke and stitch count, so we can safely move on to the dividing section. Place a ruler at the center front, just below the neckline ribbing, and measure straight down. We measure at the front because some of you may have worked German short rows at the back, which add extra length there. For my size M, the yoke should measure approximately 21 centimeters or about 8.5 inches. If your measurement is 1 to 2 centimeters off in either direction, that's perfectly fine. But if it's noticeably longer, say 3 to 4 centimeters, your row gauge may be a bit loose. You can keep going, just be aware that the finished T may feel a bit more relaxed around the armholes. If you want to adjust it, you can unravel 2-4 rounds. If you are shorter by more than 2 centimeters or 1 inch, you can add a few extra rounds in plain stockinette to reach the right length. Now, let's count the stitches one more time. If your stitch count is off, you can add or decrease stitches in the next dividing round. The yoke is complete, and from here we move on to dividing the body and sleeves. From this point on, both versions are worked the same way. We are at the beginning of round marker, which sits at the center of the back. Now we are going to separate the yoke into 4 parts: the back, the front, and 2 sleeves. The sleeve stitches will go on hold, and we will continue knitting the body in the round. If you need to adjust the stitch count, you can add stitches with make 1 left or decrease with knit 2 together at the beginning or end of each section. Before we begin, prepare 2 pieces of scrap yarn or silicone cords, 1 for each sleeve. First, I knit half of the stitches for the back. You will find the exact number for your size in the pattern. Next, we have the sleeve stitches, and they need to go on hold. I slip them one by one onto my scrap yarn without knitting them. I now need to cast on stitches for the underarm. This will close the gap between the back and the front. I'm using the backward loop cast on. I wrap the yarn around my left thumb, lift the loop onto the right needle, and gently snug it into place. If this method is new to you, it's one of the simplest ones. Each stitch is just a loop placed on the needle. Then knit the number of stitches across the front for your size. And repeat the same process for the left sleeve. Slip the stitches onto a second piece of scrap yarn. Cast on stitches for the left underarm to join the front and the back. And finally, knit the remaining stitches to complete the back. We are back at the beginning of round marker. Both sleeves are resting on their holders and all the body stitches, including the new underarm stitches, are on the needles. We are ready to start the body, so let's reposition the beginning of the round. The marker is currently at the center of the back, but we are going to move it to the side, under the arm, where joining the yarn will be less visible. Remove your current marker and knit across to the first set of underarm stitches you cast on. Knit half of those underarm stitches. And place your marker here. This is your new beginning of the round. From here, knit about 10 rounds in plain stockinette. That gives you enough length to try it on. Knitting those backward loop stitches might feel a bit awkward in the first round. They can be quite tight, but this is only for the first round and it will feel like a usual knit stitch in the next. To make it easier, bring the stitch closer to the tip of the needle. If you loosen it by accident, twist the strand and place it back on the left needle. Now that we have about 10 rounds of the body, let's try the tee on and see how it's coming together. Slip about half of your stitches onto a thin scrap yarn, a spare circular needle or a silicone cord and gently put it on. What can we check at this stage? Let's start with the neckline. If it sits too close to the neck and feels a little snug, that's completely fine. It will relax after washing and wearing, as long as your cast on wasn't too tight. If your neckline already feels loose and it might stretch even more over time, this is a good moment to decide. Are you happy with that? Or would you like to start over with a different cast on or slightly tighter edge? Next, look at the bust area. We don't have much length yet, but you can see if it feels too tight or too loose. And check the armholes in the same way. My sample looks good with a bit of positive ease, so I can proceed with the body. But what we can still adjust. If you would like a bit more room in the bust, you can go back to section 5 and add a few more increases, around 6 to 10 stitches. If you prefer a closer fit, you can remove a few increases from that same round. In both cases, keep the sleeve stitches as they are and adjust only the front and back in the dividing section. If the armhole feels too tight, go back to the end of the yoke and add a few more rounds in plain stockinette before separating the sleeves again. If it feels too loose, go back to the same point, unravel a few rounds and redo the separation. At this stage, it's hard to judge the fit precisely. The fabric hasn't been blocked yet, and cotton yarn will relax and drape differently after washing. So think of this as a general check, just to see that everything feels right. If everything looks and feels good, great. Put the stitches back on your needles and let's keep going. From here, it's simple. Knit every stitch, every round, until the body reaches the length you want before the ribbing. No increases, no pattern changes, no counting, just knitting. Enjoy it. And when you join a new skein, do it near the beginning of the round marker at the side. Before we add the ribbing, let's try it one more time. I usually put on the pants I plan to wear it with and just see how it looks together. And I also keep in mind that we still have a few rounds of ribbing, but this tee looks like the right length for me. But if yours feels too long, just unravel a few rounds. Too short, just keep knitting it stockinette until you are happy with it. Now, let's finish the body with the ribbing. If you would like, you can also go for an I-cord edge instead. Just keep in mind, it doesn't add any length, so make sure your top is already long enough. And if you want to see how to do it, you can check the Mellow Mood top tutorial. For the regular ribbing, switch to your 3.5mm needles, US 4, and work 6 rounds in 1x1 rib. Knit one, purl one, all the way around. That gives us about 2 centimeters or roughly 1 inch. I decided to make the bottom ribbing and the cuffs only 6 rounds. That's enough to prevent curling and not distract from the tee. But if you want, you can work 8 rounds, the same as for the neck. For the bind-off, you can use any method you like, but I will go with the basic one as usual, because I like having the option to adjust the length after washing if needed. Methods like the Italian bind-off look beautiful, but they take much longer. Let's compare. This blue tee I finished with the basic bind-off. You can see that simple chain edge. And this orange one is done with the Italian. It looks nice, but it takes time because you have to work with a long yarn tail and pull it through every stitch. As you bind off, keep your tension relaxed. If it's too tight, the edge will pucker and won't stretch properly. Try to go a little looser than you think, like this, gently stretching each stitch as you go. And that's the body done. The body is behind us, and now it's time for the sleeves. The Nuance tee has short sleeves, just a few rounds of stockinette and a ribbing, so this part goes quickly. I had some time yesterday and I need one sleeve already, so let's go through the other one together. Take the stitches you placed on hold earlier and slip them back onto your 4mm needles. That's US 6. You can use 40cm circulars, double pointed needles, or a longer cable for magic loop. I will be working with magic loop. Now, we need to pick up stitches along the underarm. Those are the cast-on stitches from when we separated the body and sleeves. Leave a nice long tail here, because we will use it later to close up any little holes or gaps. Start picking up stitches along the cast-on edge. Try to go under 2 strands of yarn, not just a single one, because that gives a smoother connection without large holes. Even though I only need to pick up 10 stitches, I pick up all the stitches I see along the edge, so I don't leave any holes. Usually I end up with about 4 extra stitches, 2 from each side, and then I decrease them in the next round to get back to the original stitch count. Some knitters pick up only the required number of stitches and then use a tapestry needle and a piece of yarn to close the gaps by mimicking the stitches. We will also do a bit of that during finishing, because there are always a few small gaps to tidy up. But for me personally, it feels more accurate to pick up extra stitches in advance than to create them later and improvise. It's up to you though. Once everything is on the needle, count your stitches to know how many you need to decrease and knit 1 round. When you get back to the first stitch, you can quickly secure that yarn tail so it doesn't get in your way while you knit. Thread it through a tapestry needle, and on the wrong side weave it loosely through a few nearby stitches. We will come back and weave it in properly during finishing. And here you can evenly decrease your extra stitches. I need to decrease 4, so I knit 1, and then decrease with a left-leaning SSK. Knit 1, SSK again. Now, I am at approximately the middle of the round, so I knit 1 and decrease with a right-leaning knit 2 together. Knit 1 and knit 2 together again. I have the correct number of stitches. Place the beginning of a round marker at the center of the underarm and knit 5 more rounds in plain stockinette. If you would like your sleeves a bit longer than the pattern calls for, this is the moment to add extra rounds. Just keep knitting in stockinette until you reach your desired length. No shaping needed. I'm going with the original short sleeve length, so I will switch to my 3.5mm needles US 4 and work 6 rounds of 1 by 1 rib. Knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. Then bind off, keeping the same relaxed tension we used for the body. And now do it all over again for the second sleeve. Same process, same steps. It goes faster for the second time because your hands already know what to do. We are almost there. Just a few last things before your Nuance tee is ready to wear. First, remove the lifelines if you have any. Do it carefully, especially if you worked the basic stockinette version. Now, let's take care of the yarn tails, starting at the underarms. This is where you will most likely see small gaps between the sleeves and the body. This is the yarn tail we left when we started picking up the sleeve stitches. Thread it through a tapestry needle and use it to close any gaps by following the shape of the surrounding stitches. Don't overthink it, just look at the stitches next to the gap and imitate them. Two or three passes is usually all it takes. Sometimes it's easier to do this on the wrong side using the smiles and umbrellas method. That's exactly the case here. I couldn't fix it from the right side, so I turned the work and imitated the stitches from the wrong side. There are no strict rules here, just a pure improvisation. Just don't overdo it. That looks good. If there is a gap on the other side where no yarn tail is available, cut a short piece of yarn and do the same thing. Once the gaps are closed, within the yarn tails. If you would like to see my favorite method, smiles and umbrellas, I show it in detail at the end of the Tosta Sweater tutorial. Once all the yarn tails are woven in, give your tea a good wash. This will help it settle into its final shape and even out the stitches for a smoother fabric. Submerge it in a basin of lukewarm water with a drop of gentle detergent and let it rest for about 15 to 20 minutes. This gives the stitches time to relax and settle into place. Then time is up, rinse it if needed, and then gently squeeze out the water. Roll the tea in a clean towel and press from one side to the other to absorb more moisture. Then lay it flat on a dry towel. Smooth the fabric with your hands, and this is your chance to fine-tune everything. Leave it like that until it's completely dry. And that's it, you just need a beautiful tee with your own hands. I hope you enjoy wearing it as much as you enjoy making it. And I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.